Hello and welcome to the webinar. I am Kirsten Dufour, Director of External Training and Partnerships for the Woodward Hines Education Foundation and the Get to College program. We are recording today's session and we'll send a link to everyone who has registered. For those who are watching this recording in the future, today's date is August 13th, 2004, and the material for this webinar is current through the 24-25 school year. I will now share a little background as everyone is joining us on who Get to College is and a few logistics about this webinar before we get started. Get to College is a nonprofit program of the Woodward Hines Education Foundation. We have 3 physical centers across Mississippi in Jackson, Ocean Springs, and South Haven. We help parents, students, and high school counselors and staff with all aspects of the college planning and financial aid process, and all of our services are completely free. Before we begin the webinar, we first want to go over a few housekeeping things. During the presentation, please utilize the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen for your questions for the presenters. We encourage you to put questions throughout the presentation and we'll be addressing those live as well as answering those. We do have a set time at the end, but we want to make sure you don't forget your questions, so feel free to utilize that throughout the presentation. The chat box is only allowed for you to directly communicate with the hosts and panelists. This is to be utilized if there is a technology issue or if you have a direct question or issue for the panelists or hosts. And as I mentioned earlier, today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you in the email that you'll receive tomorrow morning at 10. That is follow-up resources as well as a copy of the presentation. In October of 2020, Mississippi's Education Achievement Council, or the EAC, passed a resolution to adopt a post-secondary attainment goal for the state of Mississippi. That resolution was driven by the research conducted by Georgetown University and the Lumina Foundation. As you can see, by 2027, 70% of jobs will require post-secondary education. This information and the need for the post-secondary education and ability to continue to compete as an in-demand job market grows and need for post-secondary, it's important to note that throughout this webinar, when we refer to the word college or institution, we're referring to any post-secondary completion from a certificate to a bachelor's degree. We're all in this together to help grow Mississippi's future workforce to ensure that our state stays competitive. That's why we have a goal of 55% of post-secondary attainment by 2030. That's why we're assenting to 55. As we wait for everyone to join us, as you get settled, grab your coffee, grab your notes, we want to launch a poll that has 3 quick questions for you to answer. It will be showing up on your screen if you'll take a moment to answer those questions. The first question is, what role do you currently serve? If you'll select one. The second is, how familiar are you with National Student Clearinghouse? This is a multi-choice, so you can select several. And do you have National Student Clearinghouse questions or concerns you would like to have covered during this webinar? If you are just joining us, we've got an introductory poll. We're gathering, as we get settled for this very informative webinar, just a little bit of understanding of who's in this virtual space, how familiar you are with National Student Clearinghouse, and if there's any specific content that brought you to this webinar today, we want to ensure that we address that or are aware of that so we can provide the most valuable information for you during our time together today. All right, let's give everybody about 10 more seconds to answer your questions. So if you stepped away to grab your coffee, come back, take our poll questions, and we will move forward in about 5 more seconds. All right, last call for poll responses. Thank you for everyone who has answered them. This is very helpful. Our presenters will be reviewing this. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Kirsten Dufour, and I'm the moderator for today's webinar. As we mentioned earlier, during the webinar, we unfortunately cannot see or hear you, but we still want to engage with you. So we would like for you to utilize the Q&A feature today to ask your questions throughout the webinar. We'll have time for live Q&A with our presenters at the end, but feel free to continue to message those questions throughout the presentation. We've got three fantastic panelists here with us today. I would like to introduce our guest speakers. We've got Wendy Clemens, Associate Superintendent of Secondary Education, Career and Technical Education for the Mississippi Department of Education. Kimberly Hanauer, Founder and CEO of Unlock Ed, an educational consulting organization. And Jana Williams, College and Career Readiness Manager for Jackson Public Schools. In this webinar, you are going to get some fantastic information. You're going to hear from three professionals all about the valuable National Student Clearinghouse data that is now available to you, how to get access to it, and you're going to hear from a school district example of how they've utilized this information over the past few years and how they have been able to use it to help develop their community's workforce. Wendy, I will now turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Kirsten. I would be remiss if I start today without thanking Get to College and all of their support for K-12 education, specifically the Mississippi Department of Education and our efforts to help our students in their post-secondary endeavors. So, Kirsten, again, thank you for your support. You're always there for us, and we appreciate it. But specifically, the National Student Clearinghouse data, National Student Clearinghouse is a nonprofit organization, and they are a trusted resource for post-secondary and secondary student degree, diploma, and enrollment verification. The Mississippi Department of Education has entered into a contract with the National Student Clearinghouse. Therefore, we get data on an annual basis, sometimes up to 3 times a year. We have more than 3,300 colleges and universities enrolling 99% of all students in public and private U.S. institutions participating in the clearinghouse, and those institutions permit the clearinghouse to make this information available in full compliance with FERPA. So since we are in an agreement, MDE is an agreement with the National Student Clearinghouse, we felt like we needed to share these sets of data with you, specifically your district and your school level data, so that you as a community, as a school, as a district, can utilize this data that includes post-secondary enrollment. It includes persistence and completion data, includes traditional degrees, traditional in for example, that 4-year degree. But even more important to me is it also includes certifications, credentials that are offered by our local community colleges. So when we talk about developing a workforce, I remember back in 1990 when I started in public education, our goal was to get the students a diploma, get them walked across the stage, get them a diploma, and then kind of send them on their way. We all know that over the last 34, 35 years, that has changed. Our work in K-12 education is not just about getting the students the diploma, but helping them devise a plan for their post-secondary work, whether that be a trade, whether that be a certificate, some sort of credential, or whether it be a degree. And so you can utilize this data as a school and as a district to determine how well are you as a system doing in preparing students for that next step. What are your students doing? What are they getting their, what is their emphasis in a post-secondary institution? Are they persisting? through that. And you know, how well are we as a K-12 system preparing students to be successful in that post-secondary setting? So as we go through the data today, this is an introduction. Some of you may be more familiar than others, and that's okay. So we're treating this kind of as an introduction to this data, showing you where we've made it available for you to access, showing you as a team, a district team, how you may utilize that data to help better inform what the services that you provide to your students and your families. And so I encourage you to take the information from today's webinar and to help it drive action in your school and maybe in your community, because we want to see our students graduate from high school so that they have opportunities in a post-secondary world that prepares them for what I always call a family sustaining income and career. So next slide, just real quick. I just want to remind you again of our vision, our mission. Of course, I will not read this to you, but this data and the use of the data fits in wonderfully with our vision and our mission. We want all of our students to flourish as adults and as parents, and that family sustaining income is so important. Doesn't really matter what the students are doing, as long as they can they can have a career that sustains a family if they so choose. So this data really does help inform both our vision and our mission. And then on the next slide, of course, is our 6 strategic plan goals. My office lives a lot in every student graduates from high school and is ready for college and career. And again, I cannot express the importance that Get to College, our partners on this webinar, how they help us in ensuring that our students are ready for college and career. And I think that this data, you know, just because the students grab a diploma and move on, it doesn't mean that they're persistent in their post-secondary endeavor. So what can we do in the K-12 community to ensure the readiness for whatever that is and the persistence and completion of whatever that goal is for each and every individual student? So again, I want being here today. Thank you for your interest in this data. We hope to introduce today and then possibly explore more with you as you dig deeper into the data to help improve outcomes for your students. Thank you.
Awesome. Again, I'm Kimberly Hanauer. It's great to be with y'all. I've been working with Get to College now for 5 years and am thrilled to be with y'all virtually today. First, we're popping up the poll results. So who is in the room? First of all, 111 of you completed this survey. There's nothing we love more than this level of engagement and to have you all here today. So 28 of you are going to be those district administrators, and then we've got our school-based staff. If the others want to chime in the chat what your role is, I'm curious what the others are in the room. We're happy to have you. And then let's scroll down a little bit to see the answers to how familiar are you with the National Student Clearinghouse? Oh, I am the one who scrolls down. There we go. Okay, so 42 of y'all are saying, what is the National Student Clearinghouse? And so that's about half the room. So we are I'll spend a little more time on the what is the National Student Clearinghouse in response to that. A lot of student services coordinators, okay, and a lot of school counselors. Perfect, you are exactly the audience. We are thrilled to have you here today. Okay, and then 15 are familiar with it. Great. 5 of you have already downloaded it. Oh, very excited to have that you guys have already downloaded it. And then a few of you who have previously used it. This is awesome. For those who have already downloaded it, I would appreciate your patience for the half of the room who hasn't yet. So we're going to walk through those instructions a bit. But if you have questions, please be putting them in to the Q&A function so that we can be sure that this call is also going to be meaningful to you and helpful. And then we will check those short answers and get them into the Q&A portion. Awesome. Okay, so jumping to the next slide. So what is the National Student Clearinghouse? We're going to do the history overview right quick. And jumping forward, great. So it's been around since 1993, so not fast math at all, about 30 years old. And about 15 years, 20 years ago, districts and states started accessing National Student Clearinghouse. So some of your districts might have historically accessed it. You have to individually pay for it. Thankfully, the state of Mississippi is covering that for everyone and has that state level contract. So if you are someone with a local contract, that's not something you will need anymore, which is going to be about $700 per high school back in your pocket, which I know we can all use right now. So universities use this data as well. So they're inputting the data, but then they're also getting data back to look at transfers, look at students who might have stopped out to see, did they restart somewhere else, and to look at what those completion rates. Districts and states, we're using it to understand our long-term outcomes, credentials, certifications, and degrees. Pretty much all universities at this point are using the National Student Clearinghouse and submitting their data. During the pandemic, we had a little bit of a drop off. We had a lot of changing in staff at many universities, but that through partnerships with districts and others, we are ensuring that all of those universities are getting their data uploaded, because the universities upload data, and then when the district or the state uploads their data, then the matching happens, and that's what we're looking for the answers through. What is included? So we're looking at degrees earned. We're looking at the majors often that many are reporting it, start and end dates. It doesn't include GPA. It doesn't include specific details on academic progress or information about debt loans, which is something we're hearing a ton about these days, and wanting to dig deeper into this data set at this point doesn't allow us to do that. But we can always, fingers crossed, hope in the future. The other thing I really want to flag for y'all, so I work with a lot of different states and different districts around the country. One of the great things about Mississippi is that your 2-year programs are running they also are running your workforce centers, and that we're seeing a lot of vocational credentials, diplomas, certifications, and those are run through your community colleges, and those community colleges are reporting them to the National Student Clearinghouse. So we have this huge breadth of data that includes everything from the license to drive trucks, which in Mississippi, we have a lot of those students coming through, all the way up to a PhD in physics, that everything in that realm is going to be included there. So one more jump forward. Who has access to this data in your district? So the Mississippi data is going to be in your accountability folder that often is going to be accessed by district administrators and the data leadership in your district. And so if you're a school counselor and you're on this, you might need to go to your principal or to your district administrator to say, hey, we have this data available. Can we get access to it? We just posted a quick step-by-step guide that is going to be in the chat, and it'll also be in the follow-up notes. It's 1 page. You can print it out, or you can send it over via email, but that someone within leadership will have to go in and download the data for you. It's going to be a 45-page PDF, so you probably don't want to print that immediately before you know which slides you want off of it, but that you might not have access to it today, but that there is someone within your district that does, and we want to make that easy for you. Currently in there, you're going to see your district summary report. So JPS is joining us, Jackson Public Schools is joining us, and they're on the call. They received both a district summary as well as a individual high school reports for each high school. If you're a single high school district, you're just going to see that one district summary for the whole high school. And also, we just want to flag, this isn't new data. This data has been available through the Mississippi report card, but that because they're combining multiple data sets, it's not just National Student Clearinghouse, they're combining Institute of Higher Education information, they're including other workforce data, that is usually a few years delayed. Currently, you can see the graduating cohort of 2021. The big benefit of this data is that we are looking at what is currently in your files is going to be the May file. And so that is May 2024. That includes your 2023 graduates all the way back 8 years. And that's real time you'll see where were they enrolled in January. And so it's a very helpful piece of information and very real time. Next slide. So first, thank you to West Point for sharing your, we wanted to have very specific screenshots to say, where do I get this data? So if you're a school, if you're a district leadership that has access to your accountability folder, if you have a second screen, you can open it up right now and you can grab this data. So we'll click forward real quick. So it's within your accountability folder. So we just saw that circled. So it's going to be on the left side. And then you're going to be looking for the National Student Clearinghouse reports. And so then we'll click on National Student Clearinghouse, go to the next slide. And then this is what's going to appear. So if you, one more, we're going to see May and one more, May 2024. And that this data comes out 3 times a year. It takes a little bit for the state to download it and then get it into your files, but that there are 3 times, May, August, and December. And that December report is where we'll see the earliest information about fall enrollments for the class of 2024. So the students who just graduated, when you get that December report, you'll be able to see what your fall enrollment trends were for that group. One more. And then this is the file. So you're going to see a PDF file, and we're going to dig into what that PDF file looks like. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is when you download it, this is what it's going to look like. This is for the entire state of Mississippi. So this is the statewide. Your school, down in the left-hand corner, will say the district name or the individual high school name. And so this is where you always want to check to make sure, am I looking at the exact right district, or am I looking at the specific high school? That's where you're going to want to look on that first page in the left-hand corner. And then you're going to see the report run date. So that report run date, we're looking at 5/3/2024. You always just want to make sure, what is the data that I'm looking at? What is the date? And so that you know you're looking at the most recent information. Next slide. Here's my caution, y'all. I love data. I can do data all day. The NSC report is a 45-page report, and I'm going to talk through 4 pages. And the wonderful, wonderful part about National Student Clearinghouse and these PDFs is that each and every one of you has a 45-page PDF, and that if you get a hold of this and you're wanting to talk to another school district to say, hey, I'm looking at this data, I'm curious what yours says, you can say, I'm looking at page 8, I'm looking at page 15, whatever it might be, and that their data is the exact same with the same business rules, and that allows you to have these conversations. And it also allows for resources to be very shareable, because instructions of how to use this data, because all the page numbers are the same. So 45 pages, which is why I also caution before you print it. It's also color, so we want to be careful with our color printing. Next page. Okay, so the first page we're going to look at is page 2. So you see that cover page, you flip to the next page. This is what you're going to be looking at, which is the fall enrollment rate immediately after high school. And it's showing the graduating cohorts. So down bottom, we see 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So this is the graduating cohort. So it is not the entire population of students, it's just those graduating students from your cohort of all the way on the right, 2023. And we see a 55% fall enrollment rate. These numbers, so the next time you get this report, it might say 56%. And that's going to be that information from the universities got better, that the data is constantly being cleaned. There's lots of matching processes happening, and that as data improves, you're going to see slight changes in these numbers. Usually, I've never seen them going down. I've only seen them going up. And so those numbers do tweak a little bit as the data improves. So it is living and breathing data. And this is at the point in time of May when it was pulled. So we see a decreasing enrollment, which is something we've talked about as a state. And your natural question might be, is that at 2-year colleges? Is that at 4-year colleges? And if we jump to the next slide, the National Student Clearinghouse breaks the data down in some of these ways to allow us to answer these questions. So the orange line here is going to be 2-year college enrollment. The green line is going to be 4-year college enrollment. And so we're seeing a slight uptick in four-year college enrollment up to 22% for the class of 2023, and a slight downtick for the two-year colleges. And if this is something you're seeing in your own community, then it could prompt a conversation with your local community college to understand maybe there was a challenge this year in admissions, or maybe they could use your support in doing a summer overlap program, or thinking about collaborating in different ways, because we all want the same outcome, which is getting those students to credentials, to certifications, to degrees that are going to get them those the jobs that we know will be family sustaining wages. So this is page 4 of your PDF, if you have your PDF. Jumping to the next slide. I promised you only 4 slides, so this is number 3. Persistence. So a common thing that many within this community are discussing is, for my students who go to college, are they persisting to their second year? And within the world of post-secondary discussions, persistence and retention are 2 different things. So retention is going to be stayed at the same university. Persistence is going to be enrolled at any university. So this is looking at what percentage of students were enrolled in a university in their first year after high school, and then were also enrolled in university the second year after high school. And that could be at a different university, it could be at the same university, but were they enrolled? And we're seeing, so again, and we're going to look at those who are the cohorts. So the most recent cohort for that evaluation is going to be the class of 2021 that has had a full 2 years of enrollment to look at. And we're seeing an 87% persistence rate. This is pretty incredible, especially because over the pandemic, we did see that the class of 2021 was one of the ones that was pretty significantly impacted long-term in their outcomes. So this is great to see. And then those 87% is going to be those who are enrolled at the 4-year college. 72%, also that's a 4 percentage point increase of persistence rates among those enrolled at 2-year colleges. And the maroon line is the average of all institutions. So throughout this 45 pages, you will see a lot of different breaks. So it's going to be in-state versus out-of-state, 2-year versus 4-year. And persistence, there's either way. There's lots of data within here. We wanted to pull out some of the key questions and slides that you guys have been asking about. So let's jump to the final, number 4, our 4th data slide. And so this is going to be page 43 of the PDF. So this is in the very back. And these are the most common institutions where your students were first enrolled. And as you're thinking about this data, as you are wondering what are your enrollment patterns, as a first starting point, you might want to look at what is your largest enrolled university, and then what's the second largest, and are you engaged with that university? It's most likely that you're doing dual enrollment and other partnerships with your local community college, which for most of you is going to be your highest enrolled institution. Are you also partnering with some of the other institutions where your students most commonly enroll? And here you're looking at the entirety of the state. So these are very big numbers. Gulf Coast Community College, I don't know if you're on the call, we're always happy to partner with y'all. Y'all are incredible. And we have so many great universities in Mississippi. And so we can use this to engage those universities and be thinking about how the district is collaborating and both working towards that degree, that credential, and especially their diplomas and other opportunities that the universities offer. And we are now going to jump over to Jackson Public Schools, our district spotlight here today.
Hi, everyone. I am Jana Williams, the College Career Readiness Manager for Jackson Public Schools. And we began utilizing NCS data probably about 5 years ago to see the trends of our graduates. As Wendy stated, our graduates are still our kids, even after they graduate, and we still try to support them. Our initial dig was eye-opening because many of us felt in the district that we were getting the kids to apply, we were getting the kids to accept it, we were graduating the students, and so we just knew that the next step was them going to college and graduating from there. But after we started digging into our data a little bit, we began seeing a different outcome. So from Jackson Public Schools, we were able to use NCA's data to work with our JPS leadership to meet and review the data across the high schools and identifying strategies we wanted to implement to support our students. So with the NCS data, you will have it as a district level and at the school level. And most people want to dig into their school level because they want to know what their school is doing, not for what the district is doing. Where in my role, I look at both of them because to see how I can support the schools and the district level. And so your data is to look at and see where your kids are trending. Are they attending, which schools are having higher support of getting kids to attend college after high school? Which high schools are working with other colleges and universities? Which ones have a higher support? And so you'll be able to review the data to see the number of students that enroll in college in the fall and spring semester after graduating, what students are going to a 2-year university, what schools are going to a 4-year university, what schools are going to a state university, in-state, out-of-state, private, public, 2-year and 4-year. And then the data was reviewed to see where our kids are persisting after their first year and their second year. Data was also reviewed to see who is completing college within 6 years. And then data was reviewed by our dual credit students to see that most of our dual credit students were attending our partnership with our community college because they felt comfortable persisting there. Then after that, we convened with principals and school counselors and our CCR teachers to review NCS data to strategize areas of improvement at the school level. So annually, we review this data with school level counselors, principals, and CCR teachers. And last year, we were able to implement a CCR tracker with our counselors and CCR teachers. And so this year, we'll be able to dig a little deeper and see our kids told us they were leaving and they said they were going to Hines. Okay, well, the data should reflect it with us. Our kids told us they were leaving. They got accepted. We saw the acceptance letters and we helped them through housing, and they told us they were going to Jackson State. We're hoping to see that in our data this year. And then also, Jackson Public Schools, we have a partnership with our local colleges. Well, actually, all of our colleges and universities throughout the state, and we discuss enrollment trends and opportunities to partner. So, with the trends of seeing that our local community college and our local university, Hines Community College in Jackson State, we were able to build out partnerships with them to combat summer melt. So we wanted to be able to do some transition programs with both schools that helped our kids leave us and move to them and feel supported by the high school and the college. And then when we met with our community colleges and our other universities throughout the state, some of our schools, it was an eye-opening experience to them to see that they need to up their recruitment efforts. So why are students going to this university compared to my university? Do I need to get more recruiters into the buildings? Do I need to do more classroom visits? Should I have more campus visits? And also with our review of our data, we were able to see where one of our community colleges, our local community college, that we usually have 40% of our graduates to attend due to our dual credit partnership, did not report to the clearinghouse. So this data will give you some eye-opening digs of what it's doing. And so working with colleges and universities, we were able to see how to help support persistence. And so one thing we're trying to implement is having JPS student ambassadors on our college campuses that will work with that will host meetings with fellow students at their school that might help get them to persist through college. What issues are you having? Do you need help with this? And maybe you might be willing to work with a student that's from your hometown and possibly your high school. So also this year, we will be able to dig a little deeper with our NCS data for workforce development trends. So with our implementation of the career coaches through Accelerate Mississippi, this year we're going to look into see how our students persisted and moved on to 2-year universities, and is that for workforce development. So this will see if more of our scholars attended a community college, maybe due to the push of certificates and trades after the career coaches have worked with them with a more in-depth career exploration. And so those are just a couple things we've been implementing over the years. Each year we dig a little deeper into our NCS data, but it has been very helpful for our school district.
Thank you, Jana. And we wanted to quickly, one of the first trainings that JPS did was bringing all of their principals together along with their school counselors and their career coordinators to a district-wide training where every high school had time to look at their National Student Clearinghouse data outcomes and come up with some individual goals for the coming school year regarding that high-level data. And that was taking the PDFs, we did print them out, and that everyone sat around the table with time to dig into their PDFs. And from that, we built a quick resource, a little facilitation guide for those who might want to print those PDFs and maybe have a training tomorrow that hopefully you could grab this and you could run. There are 3 different trainings in there, a 45-minute guide, and then a bigger 3-hour training, which was what we did with JPS, giving everyone enough time to not just look at the data, but have a facilitated conversation and goal setting with the data. And so those resources are available to you in a Google folder that we just posted. And if you did have questions about those, you could follow up directly with me, which our information will be available in a bit, but that you can take these PDFs and use them immediately in conversation with folks. And no, there we go, Kirsten.
All right, so we've had some questions come in through the Q&A, but we have some that came from our initial poll. So I'm going to pose to our presenters a few of those questions. Is there a way to fix the data that was not uploaded from a 2-year school last fall to make our reports more accurate?
Great question. So as soon as that university uploads to the National Student Clearinghouse, that maybe they have a 3-year backlog, and then they upload all of that information, the next set of reports will be reflective of all of that updated information. And we often see some movement, especially with that fall enrollment file, because the universities submit it in early September to National Student Clearinghouse. And at that point, there are students that might withdraw or might re-enroll, that it's not really fully closed. And that when they submit, then so they submit 3 times a year as well. And every time the data gets a little bit cleaner. So if that university hasn't submitted, maybe chat the presenters to let us know what the university is. And we can there's not so much that you can do other than to be chatting with them and to be encouraging them to get it in. But I would guess the state would also very much want them to be reported because no one wants underreported enrollments. So yeah, as soon as that data's in there, it'll be updated.
Thank you.
And I would just touch on it to make sure you do check the reports more than one time. Like Kimberly was saying, sometimes the fall reporting does not give you the meat of what you're looking for. And so the second report will, just to the colleges, they're starting school back as well. And so just make sure to check each report to see how your data is changing. And we did have the issue where we did have a community college that did not report for us. And so what we did was we got on the line and called the college and just let them know what was going on so they could dig on their end to see why they hadn't reported.
All right, so the next question we have is, how will this information help support students in underrepresented communities?
Jana, do you want to talk about the work you did looking at the different high schools and then thinking about the strategies there?
I can. So Jackson Public Schools is in our capital. For all who are here from Mississippi, I assume everybody is here from Mississippi, but our students are, we're urban capital. Most of our students are underrepresented. And what we did was dig into making sure that everything was across the board the same. So for instance, at our initial review, we had 7 high schools. We do have 6 high schools now, but we ensured that all CCR strategies were taking place at all of our high schools. At one time, we did notice in our initial data dig that some of our schools might have better outcomes with their NCS data because the school was implementing more CCR strategies. And therefore, we took on as a district level that these strategies will be implemented at all of the schools. So for instance, we have a district-wide college fair. At one time, we had 7 high schools, and every high school might not have a college fair at their school, or the college fair might not have as many colleges represented. When we do our campus visits now, we take all of our seniors. We have all we've had junior days in Mississippi State with all of our juniors, senior days at Ole Miss with all of our seniors, and at Jackson State. So we try to implement strategies throughout all of the schools for our students.
Thank you. That's very helpful to kind of think across if you're working in a space with numerous schools and populations that are unique to those. Wendy, this question has come up a few times, so I'm going to throw it to you for the larger group to hear. There's a few people that are interested in both the student level data, if that would be available, and if they're opening up their folders and seeing things that don't align, they may be missing a report or something. What are those next steps that they should take?
Thank you, Kirsten. Yeah, I understand that everybody is very interested. Several of you mentioned that you're interested in looking at specific students to see what their persistence and analyzing why that might be, why it may not be. We have been in talks with Deborah Donovan with OTSS. And we do, in fact, as a state in our contract, have access to the student level data. OTSS, as they are rolling out MSIS, the new MSIS, they are, steadily working on that. So I know that we are in the queue to get those student level reports incorporated into MSIS. So I'm not sure. I cannot give you, of course, the timeline for that. We're hoping that something maybe they're going to work on this year. Maybe the end of the year, let's say the reports, it may be possibly the May report before we're able to get those student level reports accessible to you guys. But the good news is that we do have access to that through our contract, and we will be able to get that information to you. The other question, Kirsten, several of you have asked, if you're a district that has more than one high school, we have been asked by several districts about district reports. And I did confirm with Deborah that we do not have, quote, district level reports. What you will get if you are a district that has multiple high schools, you should have a report for each high school. But there is not a report that is, quote, what you call a district level report. So if you're, Rankin County, DeSoto County, I think Union County asked the question, you'll have those school level reports. And Kirsten, I think you asked me to address one more question, and
That was it.
Okay,
That was
great.
it. You did
I
great.
didn't write it down, so I was like making sure I got them all.
You're good. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Kimberly, we've got one more question kind of about you, and Jana, please chime in as well. I know that there's some kind of privacy data elements to this information, what can be shared, what can't be shared. Can either of you speak to that a little bit as these participants are seeing this for the first time, just so that they're aware of what that information privacy pieces look like?
Yeah. Well, on the PDFs, the great news about the PDFs is that there is nothing within those files that can't be shared. The Mississippi State data, from what I understand, that it is shared publicly through the Mississippi report card. And so the intention is not for that to be shared publicly. Your district level data, though, and the data within the PDFs is all publicly shareable. There's nothing within that information that is in any way controlled by or FERPA protected. Anything that is lower than 10 students has been removed. If in terms of, let's say you only had 10 students to enroll at a community college, you would just see no persistence information for that because that falls outside of the threshold. Once you have access to the student level files, that's when it becomes a little bit murkier, where we have to be a bit more careful, because we can't be publicly sharing, especially in obviously FERPA protected or anything other than smaller than a 10 or a 25 N size, depending on your district rules. But that also the university specific information, we have to be very careful about, that we can't be publicly saying Ole Miss has a persistence and completion rate for our students of 95% and another university has only a 20%. We can't be doing that publicly. We can be using it internally within the team and within, as you're thinking about partnerships and other things, but that we can't be sharing it publicly. At this point, we don't have access to that information, so you don't have to worry about getting yourself in any trouble. But that is something that we are always very careful about, because there are restrictions on the sharing of that information. The PDFs, you're good to go. They are, you can share them as you wish. It is your data to share though. So people can go to the report card for publicly, available reporting information, and that you can use this data as you see fit.
And also speaking on that, when you get your data from your schools, you can't call up the University of Southern Mississippi and say, hey, these 15 kids didn't persist. I need them in a room so I can see what's going on. So the kids are they're yours, but not yours anymore. So that was one of the strategies I was sharing out that we were trying to implement, was having a student ambassador on campus that can kind of work with the students, their peers, but and then maybe I could come and support the kids in a way, but it cannot be college driven based on your NCS data.
Thank you both for addressing that and sharing your experience. We had some questions come through the Q&A that have been answered via typing, but I wanted everyone to hear, as a CTE director, how do I access the data? And that guidance was given that you'll need to get with your district leadership to access your accountability share folder. And then there was a question on if there was going to be a copy of the presentation available, or will it be recorded? And yes, we are recording today's session, and also going to be sharing the presentation with you all, as well as the resources that were in the chat. That will be emailed to you all tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We do 24 hours after the start of the webinar time. All right, I'm gonna last call for questions. If you'll drop those in the Q&A feature, we'll be monitoring those as they come through. As we wrap up our time together, we want to thank all of our presenters for the great information. We hope that you all found this presentation helpful. As I mentioned, we'll be emailing you the presentation recording, as well as the PowerPoint slides and the resources that were mentioned. If you have any follow-up questions on the information provided in today's webinar, so just accessing the accountability folder or the technical space of the reports and getting access to those, please contact Heather Morrison. You see her information on the screen. And our presenters' contact information, if there's something that they said that really resonated with you or you have more questions about, you were able to get those answered today. Their contact information is on the screen as well. So we appreciate all of you joining us this afternoon and all this morning, really, and all the information that you're going to be downloading and gathering to help your students with their next step plans to be a strong member of the workforce for Mississippi for many years to come. And we are very glad that MDE is providing this available statewide to districts. It's been something that we have hoped for a long time, and so we're very appreciative for that access. There's some love coming through in the Q&A for that as well from those districts. So thank you all for your time as presenters and as attendees, and we look forward to seeing what great things you do with this data that you have available. So thanks for joining us today.